and Yorch officially lied about their fake numbers. Looks like I was correct, and so was Circana, aka Matt Biscatella.
You one crazy ass bitch!
What is up, space pirates? This is your Admiral, the quintessentially quirky Dr. Disaster, and it is time for a nuanced discussion of the sales numbers for Ghost of Yotei, because for the past month and a half or so, we have been looking at Sony and Sucker Punch and exclaiming,
"For God's sake, just give me the damn number!"
The reason that the sales numbers for Yotei were so sought after was because, first of all, as I'm pretty sure everyone knows by now, Sucker Punch got themselves embroiled in controversy after Charlie Kirk was murdered and one of their employees celebrated the fact. Sucker Punch low-key fired the employee but refused to publicly address or condemn that sort of language, and a lot of people were completely put off by that.
Piss off, you grotty little wanker!
So obviously, everyone really wanted to see what the sales numbers for the game were going to look like after it released, and to make matters worse, one of the reasons we were expecting sales numbers right away is because we got them fairly immediately with Yotei's predecessor, Ghost of Tsushima. Here is the announcement from Sony less than a week after Tsushima's release, telling us that the game sold 2.4 million copies in 3 days. Meanwhile, Sony was conspicuously silent when it came to Yotei's numbers for a while now. This gave off the impression that for this game, they were going,
Oh my god, nobody look! Nobody look! Nobody look!
Well, a few days ago, we talked about the sales data which was leaked for this game. Somebody gave that data to Grums, and it looks as though his source was correct. The data he presented suggested that the game had sold about 3,400,000 copies, which was around 16% less than the original game. Anyhow, this tweet from the Game Awards just came out announcing that Yotei has sold 3,300,000, a little less than we thought. This isn't a clean win for the CHUDS, because Sucker Punch will certainly have made money on this game by now, but keep in mind that sequels to hit games almost always sell better than the original. The audience doesn't typically shrink unless there is some kind of problem with the game, and that is why the shills for this game have been struggling to find a narrative to explain the drop in sales. I can imagine them seeing these sales numbers and going,
Holy shit! Holy fucking shit!
Alright, me hearties, make sure that you hit the like button on this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I've had a lot of people tell me that they have been unwillingly unsubscribed to the channel. Almost every day I hear from someone who says they didn't believe me when I talked about this phenomenon, but then they noticed that they themselves were unsubbed from the channel. I don't know why it happens, but I hear it a lot. So check into that and hit the notification bell while you're at it. Anyhow, let's take a peek at the reaction to the official release of sales numbers for Ghost of Yotei. Now, the first thing I want to point out is that while the corporate ass-kissers out there who get paid by these big AAA studios in the form of early and exclusive access, these people are struggling to come up with ways to turn this into some sort of narrative victory. As I said about a month or so ago, right around the time that Yotei was released, these people are desperate to present a victory in gaming because corporate slop and woke slop and all that sort of shit has been struggling in the past few years because a certain segment of the gaming population refuses to give these companies any damn money. Maybe it is the majority of gamers. Maybe it isn't, but one thing is clear. The number of people bowing out of a game like Ghost of Yotei is clearly enough to be damaging to the industry's health, and these shills do not want that to be the case. They want whatever their AAA benefactors put out to be viewed as the best thing ever by everyone, and they don't want any segment of the community to be able to affect the direction the industry goes. That is obvious based on the way that they are behaving. Meanwhile, I would like to emphasize the fact that I have no problems admitting that the release of this game is certainly not a clean win for the CHUDS, especially considering the budget that Sucker Punch reportedly had for the game. They are already making money on Ghost of Yotei based on that budget, so it isn't as though the game is a flop in the traditional sense. The most disheartening thing from our perspective is that it looked for a while like it might be a flop, but the full-on woke folks out there who want this game to succeed, and the normie, politically uninitiated who wanted to play the game and they want it to succeed because maybe they're big Sony fans or big Sucker Punch fans or whatever, they were able to make the game at least profitable, and that's all there is to it. But to come out and act as though the CHUDS have had no effect on the game when it is trailing its predecessor is patently absurd and wishful thinking. When I talk about something or predict something, there's always a chance that I'm wrong or that I miss something, but what I'm not going to do is completely bullshit you, like these guys that we're going to talk about in a minute here. I've heard some people on my side of this Yotei argument still calling the game a flop, and that is not the truth either. This isn't Dragon Age the Veilguard, but look at games like Fable 2, Halo 2, or Uncharted 2, just to name a few. Those were all first-party console exclusives, just like the Ghost of series, and each one of those games significantly outsold the original. In fact, when digging through these numbers, I have been able to find only a single example of a console-exclusive sequel to a popular game not outselling the original, and that example, for the record, is Spider-Man 2. That game sold significantly less than Insomniac's original Spider-Man game, and if you will recall, Spider-Man 2 got a lot of flack for being pretty damned woke. The game sold a lot of copies still, but it has been a significant drop-off. In fact, they are at somewhere between a third and half of the copies sold of the original. There may be other examples out there that I am missing, and if anyone can find them, I would be curious to have someone point out sequels to successful console-exclusive games that did not outsell the original. There certainly aren't many of them, that's for sure. But with that in mind, knowing that a sequel uses the built-in marketing tool of the success of the original game in order to propel it to loftier heights, knowing that that is normally the case, let's look at this reaction from KGN Gamer on X, who wrote,
Ghost of Yotei has officially sold 3.3 million copies within its first month. Boycott officially failed. Grums, Endymion, Smash JT, J Viper, and Yorch lied about their fake numbers. Looks like I was correct, and so was Circana and Matt Piscatella.
And Grums responded to this guy saying, ha ha ha, bullshit. I was 100% accurate, you are lying right now. And let's take a look at Grums' post from last week, which we covered, where he said that Ghost of Yotei had sold 650,000 fewer copies than Tsushima, which was 16% less, and if you do the math on that, 650,000 is 16% of about 4,050,000, and if you subtract 650,000 from that number, you are left with around 3,400,000. That is pretty spot on. So what exactly was Grums supposed to have lied about here? he has been consistent in saying that Yotei has not sold as well as Tsushima, and the numbers were basically spot on. It seems to me that the only contention that KJN has with Grums is the interpretation of the numbers. And the funny thing is that Grums has been very clear that Yotei is not a flop. He has been consistently correct here, saying that it is making money, but selling fewer copies than the original, which is not where a sequel wants to be. This talking point where these defenders of Sony are coming out and talking about install base, and how since there were more people that owned PS4s than there are people who currently own PS5s, that somehow this is what damaged the sales of Yotei. Guys, that is some pretty weak-ass cope. When you reach numbers like the 85 million or so that they have with PS5s, the difference in install base becomes negligible. Because let's just be real, the type of gamer who wants to buy a game like Ghost of Yotei on day one and play it, the type of gamer who is a Sony fanboy, they already own a PS5, and that is all there is to it. The game, Yotei that is, should be expected to sell more than Ghost of Tsushima due to the fact that it has the advantage of riding on Tsushima's coattails, but it didn't do it, and I expect that is because there were a bunch of chuds out there who said, nope, not gonna buy this thing. These shills can hate that fact all they want, but it doesn't change a damn thing. And I found this chart here posted by Smash JT on X showing the projected sales figures for Yotei to be pretty interesting. He apparently used AI to help him build the chart, and it suggests that the game will end up selling around half of what Ghost of Tsushima sold, around 6 or 7 million units after a few years. He wrote on X, Sony announces Ghost of Yotei sales numbers. It sold 3.3 million units worldwide in the first 32 days. For a sequel, it pales in comparison to Tsushima, and Sony can't be happy with this. Here's a visual comparison I made based on milestones from Ghost of Tsushima, and then he posted this in response to his own post. When I was creating the table based on milestones hit, I asked ChatGPT why it had Ghost of Yotei trailing so far behind Tsushima, and then here is the conversation. He asked, how did you get to that outcome, and why is Yotei falling so far behind? And ChatGPT replied, the chart reflects verified sales milestones and realistic projections. Tsushima sold 2.4 million in 3 days, 5 million in 4 months, and hit 13 million lifetime, showing strong word of mouth. Ghost of Yotei hit only 3.3 million in its first month and shows slower momentum. Why it's lagging is because of weaker reviews, less novelty, crowded release window, and smaller PS5 install base and lower replay buzz. So, I found that all to be very interesting. As I said, this isn't a clean win for the CHUDS, but I do consider it a win, especially when it sounds like Sucker Punch has come out recently and said they are moving away from the Ghost of series for a while. But I'm gonna leave it there. What do you make of these numbers? Drop your thoughts into the comment section below, and we will talk there. Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your Admiral is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.